Yeah, so how was your day?
My day was pretty good, actually. Yeah, nothing too exciting, but it's been good.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah. Man, I'm so excited to have you on. I really am. I'm excited. I'm excited for this.
Awesome.
Um, so, I mean, not too much of a formal intro or anything, but, I mean, Coach Z, right?
Yeah.
Defensive coordinator for Bluffton Beavers, Bluffton University.
Yes, sir.
Kind of getting things started. Tell me about your playing career. I was always curious about, like, your playing career.
Yeah, so I didn't have the best playing career personally, but I was very fortunate to be a part of some really good teams and learned from a lot of really good coaches. And I think that's part of why I'm coaching now, because my older brother, when he was a freshman in high school, he was cool with me being a ball boy for the team. And the cool thing was the coaches allowed me to be a part of the team that way. So I got the chance to experience being a part of a high school team when I was in 6th grade. And so that kind of showed me a lot more of what the inside of a locker room was like, and just kind of the culture within a team. And that program, I take a lot of pride in that program, because when I first got there, and like when I was growing up, that school was not very good at football and had never been good at football. And then the year before my brother started, we had gotten a new coaching staff in, and they had kind of gotten things going, and they made the playoffs for the first time ever, but they lost in the first round of the playoffs that year. And then when my brother was a freshman and I was a ball boy, they had a ton of success and got to the semifinals, and went to the semifinals back-to-back years, his freshman and sophomore year. And then his junior year, I think, lost the first or second round of the playoffs. And then I got the chance to play. And so I was fortunate when I was younger. My parents, I didn't like it at the time, but my parents made me play flag football when I was little. So I didn't get to play tackle football until my 7th grade year.
Wow.
But I went to a small school, and so they didn't have junior high football until my 7th grade year. So that was the first year that I got to play tackle football. It was the first year the school had it. And we went undefeated when I was in 7th grade and 8th grade.
Heck yeah.
And so there was a lot of anticipation for my class going into high school. And we had some good success my freshman year. I think we lost in the second round of the playoffs, if I remember right.
Wow.
And then my sophomore year was crazy start to the season. I think we hadn't allowed a point on defense for the first 6 weeks or something like that.
Wow.
So we were having a lot of success in that year. And my brother, I think it was my freshman year, my brother was a senior, so I got to play with him for a year. That was cool. And then he went to college and decided not to play anymore, which is probably a good decision for him. So, yeah, then I just got the chance to keep growing and keep learning. And then my junior year, dealt with a pretty significant knee injury. I was actually the first person in school history to get carted off the field in the ambulance.
Heck
so I think I still hold. I mean, nobody can ever take that away. I was the first.
Yeah.
So.
Do you get like a plaque for that, or is
No,
that like?
no, there's nothing formal for that. I just take a lot of pride in knowing that it had never happened before.
Heck yeah.
So, yeah, we won the game though, so that was good.
That's important. That's very important.
Yeah, I was fired up about the win, but. So I missed the second half of my junior year, but we made it back to the semifinals that year. And then my senior year, I was able to get back and get healthy, and we made it to the state championship for the first time in school history. And we lost by 1 point, which still kills me. I still think about it all the time, but it was a great experience. And like I said, I was very fortunate to be a part of that program, very proud of that. And then I got the opportunity. I went to Eastern Washington University, and I won't dig too deep into it, but I thought I was going to have the opportunity to play, and it didn't work out. So I got cut my freshman year, got cut my sophomore year. We won the national championship my sophomore year, and it was a ton of fun being a part of that and being around it. But I was not on the field. I wasn't a part of the team. So I was involved, I guess, but not directly, not in the way I wanted to be. And so going into my junior year, the coaches told me I was too old to keep walking on. So if I wanted to keep playing, I needed to transfer. So it was a tough decision. I wasn't sure what I wanted to do, but I ended up choosing to transfer, and I ended up transferring to the University of Puget Sound, and I played 2 seasons there. My junior year, I didn't get to play very much. I was not as in shape as I thought I was. I thought I had been doing a good job of preparing myself, and I think I did for the most part, but it wasn't the same as having 2 full years of training with a college football team, the way that everybody else that I was around had done. So got to play a little bit, but not very significant role. And I was kind of disappointed by that, but ended up having off-season surgery going into my senior year. Finally got cleared and got healthy. And then the first play of my senior year, I broke my wrist. And so played my whole senior year with a cast on my arm. And that was, I mean, it was a good experience to play, but it was frustrating for sure, as far as not being able to be healthy. But had a good experience. It was fun. I ended up leading the team in sacks, which was not very impressive because we were not a very good football team. So it was the first time in my life at any level and any sport that my team did not have a winning record. So like I said, I was very blessed and very fortunate when I was younger to be a part of some really good programs. But yeah, my junior and senior year in college, that was very much a low point as far as the team was concerned. We did not win a game for my junior year or senior year. We went 0-18, I believe, over those 2 seasons. So, yeah, then I decided I still had some eligibility left, but I had to have surgery on my wrist the day after my last game and made the decision not to come back for financial reasons mostly, but also I really enjoyed the experience at Eastern Washington University more. And so I transferred back to Eastern Washington University, and I was able to get a chance working with the coaching staff, and that's kind of where I got my foot in the door with coaching. So that was a long-winded answer.
Yeah,
I apologize.
that's awesome though. I'm also curious, what's the process like of like being cut like a D1? So you walked on, you made the team, right, and then you're going through a certain amount of time of practices, and then they're like, oh, you're done.
Well, so the funny thing is, it depends on where you go. The process is a little bit different, but the process was not so much a process for me, and I wouldn't say I made the team. I would say I was in the process. And then there wasn't really much of a process at that point. It was just, all right, nobody made it. We're done. Like, that's it. Go home. So it wasn't as cool as I expected it to be in that way. My first year, it was almost like it wasn't even taken seriously. So my first year, I think there were maybe 12 people, something like that. It might have been 10, but including me, that tried. And it was very much just kind of, we went through about a month of paperwork and meetings and just things to kind of weed people out. And I made it through that stuff. And then we had one day on the field, and it felt like it was, the coaches were just kind of checking a box and saying that they did it. So I don't think they really took any of us seriously. I don't think there was really any intention to bring anybody on. And I don't think anybody from that group made it onto the roster. The next year, I think there was 88 people, and so it was a much bigger group, and it felt like much more of a true process. So again, it was about a month worth of paperwork and making sure that guys were doing everything they needed to do to be able to be eligible and all of that. Yeah. And so once you made it through that, then there was a couple workouts, and a couple different workouts and different like drills that we did and different things that we went through. And out of the 88, I finished second. The guy in front of me was the only one that made the team. And so it's kind of funny because one of the coaches that I talked to about it afterwards, he was like, yeah, you probably would have made the team, but that guy's cousin used to be our quarterback, and he was saying if he didn't get on here, he was going to go play for our rivals. So we had to take him. I was like, okay, that's fair. I mean, I get that. At least you told me why. So in all honesty, it wasn't as much of me being on the team as it was me being a part of the process. So it was unique in that way because the irony of that is that when I left, that next season they had more injuries that year than any other year. They actually started calling people from that list. And since I left, I didn't get a call because I wasn't in the school there anymore. But I had guys that I had gone through the process with that I knew were like 5th or 6th. They got called and they got to be on the team that fall. So man. I was like, dang, if I had stayed, I probably would have been on the roster, but it maybe wouldn't have been a good thing. So maybe it was a blessing in disguise. But
I mean, at least you took like a risk on yourself. Like for me, my college decision was like, I'm not going to college unless I get to play football.
Yeah.
And so it's like you went to school knowing like I'm gonna take a chance on myself to play, which like
Right.
I respect. I could do that.
Yeah. Thank you.
But it's all part of God's plan.
Right.
Like with you transfer and stuff like that, and look where you're at today.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. That's true.
kind of leading to that. It's like, how'd you end up at Bluffton then?
Yeah. Good question. It's always been a journey. So the coaching industry is wild. So it's all about who you know and the connections that you have. So I started when I was coaching at Eastern Washington. I had the opportunity to stay there, but I would have been a volunteer for a while. And so I was like, I got to pay bills. So I ended up getting a high school job and worked a full-time job at the same time, and did that for a couple years. Ended up getting a job out in Chicago area at an NAIA school. Did that for a couple years, and then moved back to a high school for a year. And then I was fortunate to get a job at a Division II school for 4 seasons. And at that school, I worked with a guy who worked with our head coaches at Bluffton, our head coach's brother. And so when Bluffton was looking for a defensive coordinator, they reached out to people they knew and tried to find somebody that would be recommended. And the guy I was working with at the time put my name in and recommended me. And so he asked me if I was interested in this at all. And I was like, yeah, definitely. He was like, well, why don't you do some research on Bluffton before you answer that question? I was like, okay. So I started looking up Bluffton, and I was like, okay, yeah, I see why you told me to research it. It's a little small, but I'm still in. I think it's good. And he's like, okay, I'll go ahead and recommend you. So, yeah, it was through a recommendation, and I was fortunate again to be in the right place at the right time. That's been kind of a constant theme for my career, is just being blessed to be around people at the right time. So, yeah.
And we kind of talked about that when I was going to get advice from you. It's like about networking yourself. Like, I just feel like it's a huge thing.
Yeah.
It's a huge thing. I never realized how like much knowing people would affect me.
Yeah. Yeah. I didn't either. When I first got started, I didn't realize how much it impacted things, but that's kind of how the world works, is who you know, not as much what you're able to do and what you're able to accomplish, but the relationships that you build.
Yeah, for sure. And then going off that, man, you're doing a great job like going off and like ending where I want to start my next question. So you did chapel during the season, and you mentioned a lot of the guys were kind of going through stuff and mental health and things like that. How important to you is it for you, like for your guys to have a positive and strong like mental what's the word?
Mentality.
Sure, I guess. Yeah.
Cool. That's a question I could answer for a long time, because I think it's critical. I think it's huge. And there's levels to it. There's layers to it for sure. But that's something that I've really been developing over the last couple years of my coaching career. And I think that I've gotten to a place where it's an important factor in what we do and how we do it. First of all, you started talking with the chapel and leading that, and then talking about what everybody was going through. And I think it's important to understand that everybody that's in the room is going through something, and it may not be a bad thing. It might be a great thing. Like, everybody's going through something unique and something that's individual to that person. And if we stand up there and try to treat everybody like it's the exact same journey for everybody, then to me, that's kind of foolish. And so I think it's important to understand that everybody's got their own perspective on where things are at, where things are going, where they've been. And you just have to be able to approach it in a way where you let people know that you understand that, and you're willing to accept that and work with people where they're at. And so that's big to me, in being able to build relationships with guys to help them get the best out of themselves. And when you start talking about it from a football side of things, I think and I say this all the time when I'm doing recruiting, and it probably gets old for the recruits to hear, but so many coaches around the country talk about being mentally tough, but how many coaches actually teach you how to be mentally tough? Up until a few years ago, I was one of the coaches that had no idea how to teach that. And again, I've been very blessed and very fortunate to be in the right place at the right time and learn from some great coaches and great people. And I've been able to work with a mentor and a friend that's helped me develop a training or a a program that we use to help develop our mentality. And so that's something that's super important to me, because I believe that the majority of the game is mental. And yeah, there's a lot of stuff that you need to do physically in order to be successful. But if you're not prepared mentally and you're not strong mentally, you're missing a huge element of your competitive edge. So as a coach, it's super important to me to work that, train that, develop that, not only for football, but then for life after football, because at some point your football career is going to end, whether you like it or not. And hopefully it takes a long time for that to happen, but at some point there's a shelf life to it. So it's going to end, but there's still life after that. So if we're not preparing our guys for life after football, we're missing the mark a little bit. And so it's important to me that we take the time to work on it, to give guys tools to be successful in life outside of football while they're playing football, but also to give them a competitive edge on the field, but then again to set them up for success with whatever they choose to do outside of football.
Wow. That's a phenomenal answer. That is a great answer. Wow.
I appreciate that.
Wow. I don't know what to say about that, because, like, I don't know. I feel like I've had some great coaches. Like, I've been a part of all winning programs except, I don't want to say Bluffton, but I have been. And, like, it's weird, like, going from my high school, like, my coach, like, he always said, like, he wants a good football team, but he wants us to leave our high school better men. Yeah. And, like, we did, like, little presentations every week, kind of, like, talking about the word of the week and, like, how that applies to football and outside, like, football. Mm-hmm. And then at, like, Mount Union, it's just, like, we're going to win football games because we have D1 walk-on caliber guys, you know? And so, and then here, it's like, I feel like Nardo really does care about, like, the guys and, like, their character. And, like, I feel like he really does work on that. But then there's also, like, the winning aspect of, like, Bluffton's issue, you know? So it's, like, it's just weird to see, like, the different programs, like, take on mental health while also trying to, like, win games, you know?
Yeah.
Very good stuff. Yeah. All right. Now we're getting to actual, like, coaching questions.
Okay.
So, like, where did your defense come from? Like, you're the only defensive coordinator that I know. I know, like, 4. To be fair, but you're the only one I know that runs, like, a 3-high safety look. The whole, like, where did that come from?
That's a good question. I'm just gonna let you know before I answer all of the schematic questions. I'm gonna give you as much information as I can without giving away all my secrets.
That's perfectly fine.
Just to be straightforward with you.
Perfectly fine.
So, like I've said many times, I'm very blessed. Throughout my career, I've been in the right place at the right time. So, this is one of those examples. And when I took this job, one of the things that was exciting to me about this job was the opportunity to run this defense, because it's a very unique style of defense and it's a very unique opportunity. So this specifically is something that comes from our head coach's brother. He was a part of the staff that kind of put this defense together, and there's not a ton of programs around the country that run it the way that we do. Mm-hmm. And so I was fortunate when I took the job that Coach Nardo made it clear to me that he knew what he wanted to run on defense, and this was his plan. And so he needed somebody that would step in and be willing to do it, willing to learn it, and willing to run it how he wanted it done. And so that's kind of the foundation of where that came from, was from Brian Nardo, who's currently at Oklahoma State as their defensive coordinator. But Coach Nardo's been great to me and allowed me to bring a little bit of my own style to it as well. And so there's some influences that are built into what we do defensively that have come from multiple different coaches that I've been around and different programs that I've been a part of. So it's it's different. It's unique, but I embrace being unique. I love it.
I hate your defense.
I'm glad.
I hate it. As a receiver, it's like, because you're always reading, like, is it 2 high, 1 high safety? It's like, there's 3 of them.
Right, yeah. How do you know?
It's like, there's 3 of them.
Yeah, well, and that's one of the things that we talk about is we want to create confusion through consistency. So if we show the same picture all the time, it's difficult for offenses to be able to figure out, is the middle of the field open or closed? Like, is the safety going to be there or is he going to leave? Like, is he coming down or is he going over the top? Mm-hmm. There's a lot of things that we can do from a 3-high look that you can't always do if you don't have those 3 high safeties out there. So I'm
That-
glad it's challenging for you.
Honestly, I mean, I think that's what I struggle with the most is like, because like Nardo's offense is all read stuff.
Yep.
It's everything, every route that I run is a read in some aspect. And it's like, I feel like if I do this read, your DBs are right on top of me. It's like,
Right.
it's like I couldn't win, or I just couldn't figure out the offense. Either one. But I always felt like don't give me the choice to read something, because like there's just too much going on with your defense, and it was a headache, especially like during our 7-on-7 sessions.
Yeah. Well,
oh man.
No offense, but I am thankful to hear that. That's good.
Yeah. Okay. And then I already told you to prepare for this question, but I would hate for you to leave Bluffton, obviously. But if you got a job at like a higher level, like professionally or D1 or D2, would your defense change? Like, would it get more technical? Would it get more advanced? Kind of like just go into that.
Yeah. So I've been thinking about how I would answer this question, because the way I'm built is very much, I see both sides of arguments. So in a lot of ways, I don't know. It would depend on a lot of things. But I would love to keep it as similar to what we do now as I could. One thing I know, one factor that I don't have to worry about is contracts. So like if I was at the professional level, there would be a lot of pressure on me from the top down, as far as like, you can't use this guy in this way, because if he gets hurt, we owe this amount of money to him. Where if you use this guy that way, it's a little bit easier. Like we can replace him. So I don't have to worry about that at this level, because we don't have anybody that's making multi-million-dollar contracts. Yeah. So I'm not having to protect any assets in that way. So the reason I say it that way is because what we do defensively with extra defensive backs on the field, there's a lot of times where we ask our defensive backs to be physical in the run game. And so if I'm at the NFL level and you've got a safety that's making a lot of money that the general manager wants you to protect, I don't know if I can get away with putting him in the run fit as often as I would like to. And some of that too is wherever you go as a coach, you have to figure out what your guys are good at and what they excel in. So if I just assume I'm going to take this and do it exactly the same everywhere that I go, I don't think that's very wise. But there's elements of what I do that I think I would carry with me anywhere and any level. So it's not necessarily the best answer as far as a yes or no, like straight black or white, but there's a lot about this defense that I think is very impactful and helpful at any level to be able to create success, regardless of your personnel. But if I'm going to be a great coach, I've got to know my personnel well and understand what they can do at a high level. And that may be different in a different room with different players and different level of athletes. So I don't know if that's what you're looking for on that one or not.
That's perfect. But also, I guess it's a dumb question 'cause I don't know defense, but like, what is the name of your defense? Like, what do you call it? Like a nickel? Is it like, what do you call this defense? Like,
well, that's one of the secrets I can't tell you.
Oh shoot.
No. So the way we talk about it, and actually I probably shouldn't share exactly. I will tell you, like, we have a name for our defense that we call ourselves as far as creating an identity for ourselves. Yeah. We call ourselves Swarm. And so that's something that just kind of embodies the characteristics of what it looks like to play our defense. But as far as the defense that we play, yeah, that is probably one of those secrets I should keep as far as exactly what it is. Because part of the benefit of what we do is because of how we are able to create confusion through consistency. We can show the same picture and do a lot of different things. So I don't want to give away what our base thing is, because we'll show the same look every time, and the look that we show may or may not be what we're actually doing. So it's good that you don't know what it is, and I'm going to keep it that way.
Well, because I was going on Google, I'm like, what do you call a 3 high safety defense? Like, what do you call a 3 safety defense? And I was like, I don't even.
I mean, a lot of teams believe, and there's some teams that think that they do what we do, and they'll run like a 3-3 stack, but they'll add an extra DB in there.
That's what Alfred State ran against us at Mount Union, and we were like, what is this defense?
Yeah.
It was crazy.
Yeah, and I know, like, and this may be, I may be way off on this, but I believe that's what TCU did a couple years ago when they went to national championship, was something similar, but they didn't do it exactly how we do it. So they had some elements of it, but from my understanding of it, again, I haven't studied them, but I don't think they do it exactly how we do it. But there were some elements of what we do. So
Did you ever like watch and like take something away from that? Did you ever like take anything away?
yeah, I mean, I studied a little bit of them because I believe that was the year right before I got hired here. So I didn't know the defense yet. So there was some stuff that I was looking at and thinking, man, that's kind of cool. Like, I wonder how you do that or what that's about or whatever. But then when I got the job here and I learned this system, I started to see some of the differences, and I was like, oh, okay, yeah, like I see what they're trying to do there, but that's not quite what we're going to do here. So yeah, I studied a little bit, but I spent some more time studying some of the other schools that were doing it the same way that we do it. And so I was able to pull a little bit more from those programs.
Is it hard for you to watch football and actually enjoy it rather than like just breaking it down everything? Like, cause like I always like, I went to the Toledo, Ohio game with my best friend for our podcast last night.
Yeah.
And I'm calling out the defense. I'm like, I'm seeing what the corner's doing. I'm talking to my friend. He's an offensive lineman in high school. He's like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
And so,
well, that's funny that you asked that, because when I was first getting started in coaching, it's probably been 10 or more years now, but I went to like a retreat with our staff after the season, and we were watching an NFL game, and I was like so excited just to watch the game. I'm sitting with all these coaches, and they're all just talking about the scheme and like all this stuff that I'm like, man, I'm just trying to watch the game. Like, I don't, like, we're done with the season. I want to just watch. And it's funny because when I was doing that, I was like, man, I must not be a very good coach, because like they seem to see it through coaches' eyes, and I'm just seeing it as a fan. Well, now I'm like frustrated because I'm seeing it more like a coach than I do as a fan. And so I try really hard to separate the two when I get the chance to watch a game, but it's not very often during the season that I get the chance to just watch a game and see it as a fan. But I think I do a decent job of being able to not break things down as I watch. Now, that's a blessing and a curse, though, because I wish at times I could sit there and learn as I'm watching better than I do. But I think that it's something where it kind of takes the enjoyment out of it at times if you're watching it just to learn and you're not watching just to be a fan and enjoy it. So I try to do both, if that makes sense. But more often than not, I am able to separate the two and just watch a game and have fun watching the game.
That's good that you can do that. That's good. Like when I'm in season, I haven't watched the NFL since my senior year of high school, because ever since I've been in college, I've been too focused on my own playing career. Like, it gives me a headache to watch the NFL. Like, I just can't.
Yeah.
Anyways, going to my next question. This one's like kind of like a brutal question, so if you don't want to answer it, then that's fine.
Okay.
It's kind of more for my curiosity, but just also like I wonder how it works. So like for D1 and D2 recruitment, right? There's scholarships, a roster limit, whatever.
Yeah.
D3, there's no roster limit, so you can just like theoretically you can just spam offers, right?
Right.
And I was told the way by several college coaches and my family back home that Mount Union, the way they recruit is they recruit so nobody else can have you. And then that's why there's like 200 freshmen that go there every year, right?
Yeah.
It's like, what's like the recruitment like if you were going to recruit a D1, D2 versus like D3? Like, you can offer anyone, but like I'm assuming there's some guys that like, yeah, we're going to offer them, but like I'm really keeping my eye on these guys.
Yeah.
Is there, like, what's separation like that like?
Yeah. So I won't refuse to answer the question, because I think it's a great question, and I think there's a lot that you can talk about here. So I'm not going to say one way or another on Mount Union specifically, because again, I don't know how they operate. Like, I don't know what their coaching staff does or how they do it. I do know their roster size is big. But
well, that was an example that I know of. So
and I've heard that before, but I don't have any experience with them specifically. But as far as like my experience, when you have scholarships, there's some limitations to how many guys you're able to pay, and then there's also a limit to like your resources. So like when I was at the Division II school in North Dakota, it was Minot State University. They increased the limit on how many scholarships we could have, but our funding didn't increase at the same time. So we didn't have as many scholarships as the other schools in our conference did. And so when we were recruiting, we had to make sure that we made that money count even more than the teams within our conference. And so there's a difference in how you recruit in that way, because at that level, the evaluation of the talent becomes much more critical, because if you make a mistake, you're not only missing out on the production from that player, but you potentially missed somebody else that you could have gotten with that same amount of money that you chose not to offer because you misevaluated them. Where at the Division III level, when you have two guys that you like, you can recruit them both, because there's not a athletic scholarship along with it. So we're not investing anything. If you come and you're not very good, it's like, well, that's fine, we got him too. So like you said, it's kind of brutal, but the reality of it is the roster having an unlimited cap to it and not having any financial burden because of it, it opens it up to be able to recruit more people. And so you don't have to be as detailed in the evaluation if you're just trying to get numbers. But for me, like, that's one of the challenges of this level, is to try and recruit like you're a Division I or Division II coach, where you're really detailed with your evaluations so that you can bring in a team that's going to produce a winning record and do a great job. Because if you're, I don't want to say lazy, but if you choose to go the route of, we're just going to spam offer everybody and just bring in numbers, you're going to get what you pay for, essentially. So you're going to end up with a bunch of people that, to me, if you're not invested in the kid, whether it's financially or not, like with time, with relationship, like if you're not making that investment, again, you kind of get what you pay for. So you're going to end up with a lot of guys that are just kind of there because they don't have anywhere else to go, or, you know, maybe they didn't have another offer because there was something like a red flag, and you just didn't take the time to find out. So I don't know. I feel like I'm kind of getting off topic a little bit, but I think that the biggest difference is how you evaluate and the time that you take to evaluate. And then beyond that, how much time you're able to invest in the relationship building. So when you have scholarships, your number of people that you're trying to recruit is smaller. So then you're able to invest more time in those people specifically. So you get the chance to talk to them. You talk to their parents, you talk to their siblings, their teachers, the janitor at their school. Like you don't leave any stone unturned. At this level, unfortunately, you have more options at the same position that are similar talent level, but you haven't necessarily had to make that decision on, okay, this is number one, this is number two, this is number three. It's just, we'll take them all, because if we get them all, great, they'll compete and the winner wins a spot. The other two will be good. But at the scholarship level, you kind of have to make that decision before you decide who you're going to offer. So you have to really dig deep on those guys and figure out why this guy's above that guy. And so that, to me, that's the biggest difference, is the process of evaluation.
Well, as from the player perspective, one thing I never liked, because I was recruited by Finley out of the transfer portal, and I got offered by NAIA school I think it's in Kansas, Ottawa University, something like that.
Yeah.
And both those schools, when they were recruiting me, it was my the receiver coaches or like the offensive coordinator like recruiting me.
Yeah.
D3, it's like you guys are all recruiting coordinators, and so it's like I just didn't like, because when I got offered by Mount, it was the D-line coach.
Yeah.
When I got offered here, it was Coach Schenk,
O-line.
It's like I want to talk to the receiver. Like I want to know that he wants me.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
I hear you, and that's something. It's interesting that you say that, because when I was at the Division II school, we did it the same way we do here, as far as it's by area. So it's depends on what staff you're talking to. A lot of staffs do it where it's regional, and so this coach will have this area, that coach will have that area. But then there's other programs that do it by position. So it's like, all right, if the D-line coach is calling a guy, he better be a D-lineman. And so it just depends on what program. And I don't think that is as much of a – I don't think that has as much to do with the level as it does just the style of the head coach and the recruiting coordinator and what that philosophy of that program is. I think a lot of times when you do it by area, it's important as a staff to recruit as a team. So you get, for example, like I recruit certain area, so I'll recruit all the positions in that area. But if there's an O-lineman that I think is great, he needs to talk to Coach Schenk. You know what I mean? So that's where I think you can do it well if you're doing it that way, as long as you include the rest of the staff in the process. But if you leave it to just that person that's doing that area and the O-line coach never talks to the O-lineman, then you're missing a piece of the puzzle, to me. because then you get the experience, like you said, where it's like I just talked to the one coach that I didn't really care if he liked my film or not. I just wanted to get my foot in the door. But again, it's easier said than done at this level because there are so many more people that you're in contact with. Where at the bigger levels, then it's like, okay, these are our 5 best DBs, so they better hear from the DB's coach, even if the area coach is talking to them first. So yeah, I guess that part is a factor.
It's just so odd to me.
Yeah,
like, it's like,
yeah,
I don't know.
Well, it's definitely weird going from being a player and having the perspective of a player to, shoot, I just finished my 12th year coaching. I'm getting old now. But as a coach, you see it from a totally different perspective. And so you're able to see the why behind some of that stuff. And it makes more sense when you see the process. But when you're a player, it's like, this doesn't make any sense. And it sometimes doesn't from the player's perspective. And it's imperfect. It is definitely an imperfect system. And it's flawed in a lot of ways. But I know there's different ways to approach it from a coaching staff's perspective. And so it kind of depends on what program you're talking to and what experience you're going to have.
Yeah. Well, I'm not sure if you said they didn't do this, but I did have a D3 coach come to my school and talk to my coach, talk to me. And that was Defiance when they were still D3.
Yeah.
And that's actually how I met Coach Shank, was because he was at Defiance.
Yeah.
When I was in high school still. So.
Yep.
Because I'm old, apparently. Yeah. Man, I have so many questions I could ask right now. What's like the most important quality that you look for when like recruiting? Like I guess for defense, like since you're a defensive guy.
Like football quality? Like
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh man. It's a good question because I think the way I do it, sometimes it's positional, but at the end of the day, I'm a big believer in effort. Like that's a big part of who I am as a former player and who I am as a coach. I think that when you get a kid on film that you can see he's got relentless effort and he's sprinting in everything that he does, then we can coach the other things. There's always a lot of different factors that I take into consideration, but if there's bad effort from a player on his high school film that he's putting out there as something that he thinks is the best thing to show a college coach, then I'm probably a lot less interested in pursuing that player at that point, because if that shows up in their highlights, then it's probably going to show up in the day-to-day stuff. And so it's more of a negative thought as far as seeing it as something that can kind of cross a guy off the list. But if the effort's there, then I can start going down the list and evaluating some of the other things. But if that's missing, it's hard for me to get excited about a kid if I know he's not going to give great effort.
You always hear about like team chemistry, especially on the offensive side, like the QB has good chemistry with the receiver. How do you build team chemistry on the defensive side of the ball?
Yeah, if you can answer that for me, I'd be, I think, a much richer man. I've been trying to figure that out because it's a difficult thing to put your finger on, and it's not something that you can just say, okay, well, if I do A, B, and C, then we'll have chemistry. And so I think there's different ways that you can do it. I think the bottom line is it comes back to time. If you invest time with people and you're intentional about bringing people together to do different things and to spend time with each other, the chemistry starts to create itself, but it's not a guarantee. So that's where chemistry is really difficult. There's not an easy answer for that. And I wish there was, because if there was, I would be a better coach. But I'm still trying to figure that one out. I think that there's been times where I've been a part of teams that have been really, really close. And there's been times where I've been a part of teams that thought they were close, and then things happened, and all of a sudden you're like, well, I guess we weren't that close. So it's hard to say that there's like a formula for it. But I do think it comes down to spending time together and finding time away from football to connect, because you're going to be required to be together for all the football time. Like that's meetings and lifting and all of the things that go into being a college football player. You're going to have plenty of time with your teammates in that arena. But if you don't take the time outside of football to be together, it's going to be difficult to create that chemistry. So that's the best I got for right now. But
That's
like I
not bad.
said, let me know. Let
It's
me
gotta
know
be
if you
tough.
figure it out.
I always think like how does that work? Because like on offense, it's like QB throws me a ball, I'm happy because I score a touchdown
Right.
and I can dap him up and we're buddies.
Yep.
Defense is like,
I mean,
it's like
I don't know, and maybe this is just because I am a defensive guy. I don't know that it's any different or more difficult defensively, just because football is such a beautiful game because it takes every single person for one person to have success. So on offense, like the quarterback has to throw you the ball, but for the quarterback to be able to throw the ball, the offensive line has to block. And you got to have good communication from all of it. Like it all has to be, all 11 have to be on the same page. It's the same thing on defense. If one guy misses his assignment, then all 11 fail. If all 11 do their job, then one guy gets the credit, but all 11 have to do their job for it to be a successful play. And so I think chemistry is huge for football more than any other sport. But if I had the answer on how to develop that chemistry, I'd be a really good defensive coach. But yeah, I think a lot of it though, we try to encourage celebrating with each other and playing for each other and understanding that they can trust their teammates to do their job so that they just have to do theirs. And that hopefully helps to encourage that. But as far as creating it, I don't know.
Can you share like a memorable game or moment that stands out in your coaching career?
In my coaching career?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good question. I've got a few. I'll just share one because, yeah, I mean, there's plenty. I've been doing it long enough that there's good and bad memorable moments.
Yeah.
But one of the moments that I just popped in my head right now, I don't even remember the team that we were playing against. It was when I was coaching at Trinity International University in Chicago, and I was up in the booth at that time. So it was me and the defensive coordinator up there, and the game came down to a final field goal. So the other team was kicking the field goal, and I can't remember if we were tied at that point or if we had a lead by a field goal, but I know if they made it, it was not good, and if they missed it, we would win. And we got really close to blocking it. We didn't quite block it, but we saw the ball go into the goalpost, and we knew he missed it. And me and the defensive coordinator just jumped out of our chairs, and we just started screaming and hugging, and it was just a lot of fun because it was a celebration, and it was a cool moment because if I remember right, it was late in the season too, and that team ended up winning the conference, and we were okay. We weren't a bad team, but we definitely weren't going to win the conference that year. And so getting that win was a big moment for us and a lot of fun. So that was a memorable one. And yeah, I think that was my first year coaching college football officially, officially being a part of the staff. So that was meaningful for me.
Like, yeah.
Yeah.
What's like the most challenging situation you face as a defensive coordinator? Like, what's the most challenging?
Man, that's a great question. I don't know. I mean, there's been a lot of challenges. I think that's one of the things that's like great about the game of football is that every day brings new challenges, and every game, whether it goes really well or really poorly, there's unique challenges to it. So it's hard to kind of categorize it as being really challenging or not challenging or whatever. But I think the biggest challenge for me was this year, week 2. We were struggling. We were dealing with a bunch of injuries. We were frustrated. Like we had a tough day, and I think that the challenge for me at that point was, how do I prioritize what to do here? Because it felt like it didn't matter what I called, we couldn't get a stop, and it didn't matter what I said. It felt like nobody was listening at that point because it was like, Coach, this isn't going well. Like, it doesn't matter what you say, kind of thing. So it was hard for me to stay patient with myself and stay patient with the process and trust that it was going to work out. And it didn't work out that day. Like, it was a bad day. It was not a good day of defense. It was not a good day as far as the outcome on the field. But I felt like we learned a lot from it. And so that's the part that is easy to lose sight of in that moment. But I know I was frustrated at the time and felt very challenged by just the the day. I mean, it felt like there were a bunch of different challenges that popped up that day, and a lot of different factors that were involved. But yeah, that was a tough one for sure.
So I have like 3 more questions. I'm just deciding which one I want to go with. You know, we'll go with this one. If you could coach one legendary defensive player, past, present, whatever, who would it be?
Man,
It's a little fun question.
Just one?
Just you had to pick
man.
one. Who's the one you'd coach? At least one in your squad.
Oh man, that's tough. That's really tough.
Yeah.
I have a lot of names that popped in my head real quick. I think this is gonna sound funny because the reason is because I really wouldn't have to coach him. Would be Ray Lewis.
Oh yeah.
Because I feel like all I have to do is get out of his way and
Yeah.
let him go. So
Yeah.
he'd make me look like a really good coach without me doing anything.
Yeah, that's sick.
So he would be a lot of fun to watch, and I feel like I would become a better coach by being around him because I felt like, and again, I never got the chance. I wish I could have, but I never got the chance to be in a meeting room with him. But I have this feeling that if I were to be a fly on the wall in a room with him just talking, I would be 10 times better as a football mind. So that would be the reason I would choose him. But man, there's a ton of names I would have loved to have gotten an opportunity to coach and watch them play and make me look really good.
Yeah, that's sick. That's sick. All right, now time for some selfish questions.
Okay.
Some selfish questions. You answered this question already, like during the summer when I came and talked to you. But for my fans and my viewers, how are you scouting CF3? The receiver, Mr. Slot himself.
Oh man.
How when you write down an evaluation sheet, CF3? What are you putting down?
Oh man. Putting me on the spot. I love it. I mean, yeah, like we talked about in the in the summer. I think it was the summer.
Yeah, it was the
that we
summer.
talked about it.
Yeah.
I think he's, again, I'm going to talk like you're not here. So
Okay.
I think he's a possession receiver. I think he's got solid hands. I think he's reliable. I think, to be honest, I wouldn't hesitate from pressing him, not because he can't handle the press, but because I want to invite him to try to beat us vertically, which I'm going to take a gamble and say that he's not going to beat us vertically. And I'm going to force him to be a possession receiver and beat me that way. So that's my best way of breaking it down, I think.
He's calling me slow, guys.
Yeah. I'm trying to be nice about it, though. I'm trying. But, yeah, no, I think the other thing is, again, the way I see it as a defensive coach is, like I said, solid as far as possession receiver, somebody that can be reliable in situations where you need to get 4 or 5 yards on a quick throw. He's going to make the catch and get a yard or 2 upfield before we attack him and get him to the ground. But
that is true. That's
yeah.
terrifying. I got punched in the face every day by his safeties, mainly because I kept ducking my head.
Yeah,
to
that
the ball.
was. Yeah, I think you might have some PTSD or something on that stuff.
Dude, it's I like there was days I wore a visor just because I didn't want to get punched in the nose. Like it just, oh man, but it was on me for sure. Nice, what a great evaluation. That's awesome. And then, so then I also I went to clarify. I went to Coach Z about my recent decision of being done with college ball. Can you just kind of tell the viewers however comfortable you feel answering like what your advice was and what your thoughts are on like my decision of like leaving college ball like my last year to like do this whole media thing?
Yeah, so I don't know if I don't know how much I should share and shouldn't, but I think the biggest thing that I talked with you about that I felt like was important is just to make sure that you made the decision that you could live with and not have to think back and wish you would have done something differently. So as much as I might have my own opinion of what I think would have been best for me, it doesn't matter what I think. It comes down to what's best for you in the long run. And I think if I could sum up my advice in one sentence, it was essentially just to take the time to sit with each side of it and think about if you were to do it this way and continue doing college football, how would that feel? How would you how would you be able to live with that going forward? And then once you sit with that, then sit with the other side of the decision and think about how would it feel if you chose to go full on into the media world and make this your career now. And at the end of the day, like, you should be able to know the difference by how you felt about the decision in those moments. And it sounded to me like you had already kind of experienced that before we even talked.
Yeah.
So,
Well, I love that. Like, cause
yeah.
you put into words, like what I was thinking, what I was trying to do. And I'm like, this is like great advice. And I want my viewers to like be able to hear that. It helps so much, like thinking about it like that. Cause like there was like a day or two, I'm like, okay, I'm playing college ball. Another day or two, like I'm doing media stuff. And I'm like, yeah, I got to go the media way.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. And I think that's a good way of handling it. So I was happy for you.
One thing you definitely said that like really, I guess, I don't want to say scared me, but like helped my decision is like, your job is to out recruit me, you know? And during our last team meeting, Coach Days were talking about like, he's already recruiting.
Yeah.
And it's like, there's just no guarantee. And, but there's guaranteed money here. It's like, I got to go with that. You know?
Right. Yeah. And that was part of it too, is like, a lot of stuff is never guaranteed. So when you have something that's an opportunity that you're excited about and you know it's there, sometimes you just got to jump at it. And it may not be safe, but it may be something that you don't get another opportunity. So, yeah.
Sweet.
Yep.
All right, last question.
Okay.
Before we close out, what's one piece of advice you'd give to someone aspiring to play college football or be a defensive coordinator?
Those are two different pieces of advice. Yeah, I think somebody that's trying to play college football is go for it. It's a rare opportunity. It's not something that everybody's going to get the chance to do. And if you have the opportunity, you have the desire, and you want to go do it, do what you can to make it happen. I think I'm a good example of somebody that probably wanted it too bad, and it's not necessarily, I don't know, it's not necessarily an easy thing to do, but I will say that there are opportunities if it's something that matters to you and it's something that you care about and that you're passionate about doing. You just got to knock on the right doors. And these days it's a lot easier than it used to be able to find those opportunities. But if it's important to you and it's something that matters to you, I would say go for it and find a way, because there probably is a way that you can make it happen. And then for the coordinator, oh man, I've only been coordinating for 2 years, so I don't know if this is I'm the best person to give advice on this, but what I would say, and this is something that I tell myself all the time, is that it's important to continue learning all the time. And so it's very, very intentional on my part that I always want to strive to learn. Like every day I want to try and find out something new, something that I didn't know, something that maybe I don't agree with, maybe I can't use, but if it's something that I've never thought of, it's going to challenge me, it's going to push me, and it's going to help me to see on one side or the other. It's either going to help me see the value of what I do, because I know like I wouldn't do it that way, or it's going to help me to push to see, okay, maybe I need to start shifting a little bit closer to that. But I think that's important at any level of coaching, whether you're a position coach, a GA, like coordinator, head coach, any level, any station of your career. I think that's vital, but especially when you get into a position of coordinating where all the pressure's on you to make all the decisions. It's important to keep the attitude of humility, knowing that somebody else knows more than you anyway. So you might as well ask. You might as well start picking brains and looking to learn from other people and trying to figure out things that they might do slightly differently that you could implement, or things that you do that you could maybe implement more of, or whatever it is. There's always something you can learn from everybody in every situation. So don't be afraid to ask for help, and don't be afraid to ask people for their opinion, and then be willing to take advice.
Yeah. That's actually something we preach as communication majors here, is like be lifelong learners. So that's pretty cool you mentioned that.
Yeah.
I think it's really important. Like I said, like the networking aspect, learning, and being open-minded. Open-minded is a huge thing.
Yeah.
Like whether you like the advice or not, it's like take it in, acknowledge it, analyze it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that's all we got for you guys. If you guys want to see Coach Z again, leave a like. He'll come back on. We'll make him. But Coach Z, do you have any closing thoughts you want to say before we get out of here?
No, I just appreciate you having me on. This is the first time I've ever done a podcast, so it was fun.
Heck yeah.
I enjoyed it.
I had Britt on this last week, so
Nice.
yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. All right, guys. Appreciate you boys watching. Socials are linked in the description. Coach Z is old and doesn't have social media. So.
I do have a little social media.
Oh, do you want to shout it out?
Well, I mean, it's super simple. So my Twitter, I'll keep it just to my professional one. So
Okay.
my Twitter is just my name, Jacob Zier, Jacob, Z as in zebra, IER.
Sweet.
I am old, so I spelled it out like that.
Heck yeah. That's actually really important because you don't know how many recruits have hit me up on Instagram saying, what's your defensive coordinator's number or Twitter? And it's like, I don't know.
Yeah, I try. I'm still a little bit behind because the season takes me away from recruiting as much as I want to, but I'm trying to catch up on all my Twitter messages right now. So hopefully I'll get to all
Recruits, he is coming. Please stop DMing me.
Yes, I am working on it.
All right, guys. Appreciate you boys watching. We'll catch y'all in the next one. Peace.